And that, my friends, is some get hype college football music.
I'm not
Brian,
sure what
Brian asked
college
for
football that it's from, but yeah,
Yeah.
get hyped for
Blake
sure.
Blake comes
Florida
in and
Gator
kicks
music.
Penny off. That's right.
I'm now the host. Welcome everyone. I'm Kenny from Bird Pursuit, and
Oh, these damn keyboards, man, they're finicky. So as soon as I click the back button, it kicked me out. So
we drew
No.
straws, Blake. So that wasn't college football music. So you have to sing some. So
don't get me started. You know, I've been warming up the vocal cords a little bit all week, so I'm ready to go.
we'll threaten you with a good time.
Yeah.
heck
I know I
yeah.
missed the backstage part, but is my audio okay? This is going to come as a surprise. I'm actually not at my office. We're traveling. But I tried to give Fred my best places in Disney to record a podcast, and he never responded. So I'm not sure why he's not here tonight, but
Yeah,
Looks like
he's
Blake's in the penthouse at whatever resort he's
I know.
staying.
Yeah,
Got
he
a
is.
library behind him.
I said, hey, guys, I got Burn Pursuit coming in. Y'all better give me your best room. We need the
Yes,
best
sir.
guys
Right away,
left
sir.
on.
Amex points paying
Oh,
off.
he's at the Crown Plaza. All right, sweet. Well, Fred is not going to be joining us tonight, so it is just going to be us, and we only have one topic tonight, and that is going to be going over the 2024 predictions. So, if you all are ready, we can go ahead and kick it off and do this thing.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
roll.
Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
All right. Look, you guys are good. At least Blake's good. He muted himself. He knows he's got shitty audio. So here we go. Hey everyone, this is Bourbon Community Roundtable number 89. And of course, you're listening to Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. Kenny and Mr. Cecil here tonight, leading this thing as we talk to our friends from the Roundtable. But this is going to be the first Roundtable of the year. We're going to hit Roundtable 100 this year, close to about November, December time frame. So this is going to be a big year. I predict we're going to hit episode 100 of Bourbon Community Roundtable.
What number are we on? Oh, 89. Never mind.
89.
I see it right here. Brilliant. Yeah. Happy New Year to everyone. Excited. It's been 2023 was a very interesting year in the world of whiskey. And yeah, interested to see everybody's thoughts and opinions. I've been stewing on this for quite some time, just as a whiskey fan, but also as a whiskey brand. And then you're just like, what the hell is going to happen this year? Because 2023, you had the 2 pandemic years, then you had this year, past year, which was kind of strange and confusing, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in depth. And I think as one of the things that we'll go through here is that we'll be able to have everybody give a prediction, and we'll kind of discuss a little bit, talk about whether we see it actually happening, and perhaps maybe there's an angle that somebody might have missed that said, well, what about this way? So we'll, of course, dive into it because this is going to be our big show of the year where people get to see exactly about this time in December to figure out how bad did we miss it. Some whiffs, maybe a few strikes, maybe we got a single. Who knows?
I am sad we won't get to hear Fred predict Four Roses getting bought for the 5th consecutive year. So
yeah. Who knows? 24. It could be the year.
that's it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's actually all I came here to say was that Four Roses is going to get purchased in 2024. Fred sent me, and yeah, we're done.
By Seal Box, looking at your penthouse in the back.
Yeah, it's actually his penthouse is higher than most of their rick houses.
That's right. It's got more tiers than that.
Yeah, he sure does. Well, all right, we'll just go ahead. Blake, go ahead and open it up for us since you spoke first, and we'll go a quick introduction.
Yeah, Blake from Sealbox, excited to be here in the year of our 100th episode. I think I'm going to refer to it as that from now on. But thanks for having me. Always fun to be on this one and never want to miss chance to give wrong predictions. So hopefully it'll be a fun one.
Yes, it sure will. And Brian, go ahead, chime in.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on number 89. Brian was sipping corn, bourbon justice, and all that. And Blake, do you actually have a counter on the number of episodes you've been in? It's not been 89, right?
It's easy. You just look at the number of the VCRs and you know.
So from episode 1 on, I knew it was a
Yeah,
lot, but
I
come
mean,
on.
I'm going to claim that. Nobody's going to actually go back and track it for
Well,
sure,
that's
but I'm
the
going to
trouble.
claim all 89.
Yeah. Well, gosh. Well, then I'm happy to be part of year 100 for Blake and the roundtable. So looking forward to this one. I've got some absolutely wrong predictions, so we'll see how it goes.
Me and you both. We'll just go ahead and line them all up. We'll see how many strikes we can get this year. All right, Nick, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Nick from Breaking Bourbon here. I have not been on as many as Blake, as we typically rotate through the other couple guys too. But does jog a memory. I do remember the first time that we were on as the interview with Breaking Bourbon, talking about the bourbon storage experiment. I want to say it was like one of the first 15 episodes or something like that. But I don't even think we were doing it on video at that point. It might have just been audio or something. So it's just crazy to think how long ago that was. And now and I think we even talked a little bit about a roundtable type of thing or some kind of ongoing thing at, when we were chatting at that time too. But it's just crazy to think we're going to be hitting 100 at this point. So glad to be here. Glad the audience is here. These are always a ton of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and let's dive into it. Since I started this, maybe I should start first. Maybe we'll just do one, like somebody gives one and we'll just talk about it and kind of just go from there. Does that sound like a solid
Yes.
plan?
Thing, just a little humble brag. I started this, so
No. I meant like I started
this podcast. I'll go first.
Dang, I didn't know. I thought Fred was not here.
Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I meant just like I started talking first. Like I don't know. Its problem is I don't know how to shut myself up once I do start talking. So it just continues to word vomit after that.
You get
Thanks
the first wrong prediction.
Yeah, let me get the first.
Then
wrong
we'll all do
prediction.
our own wrong predictions.
Yeah. All right. I've actually got 6 that I have, but we'll see if we get to them. So the first one, and maybe it's me that's just kind of like noticed the trajectory, but I have a feeling that Penelope, even though we all called it, or a few of us called it last year that they were going to be acquired, I think in 24, they're going to be even bigger than we ever expected. And this is because we are starting to see the uptick of a mid-tier brand, but what they're also doing is they are also packaging it in such a way that it's reaching mass demographics, it's reaching mass audiences. Their branding is to the point where it spills over into different demographics and everything like that. And Mike Palladini even dropped something on his Instagram or his Facebook Live, or sorry, his story not too long ago that showed a new line extension coming from them as well. So when I think about what brand can get bigger than they already are, I see Penelope growing probably 2x even more than they are now. And that's just because now that they have Ross and Squibb behind them, they're going to have a lot more power. They're going to have a lot more whiskey, and they've got this massive sales force. So if I had to guess, I'm going to say that's going to be really one of the brands that's going to just completely skyrocket in 24 beyond anybody else's imagination.
That's a pretty good one. Because I can see it. You see, it's like I get on Instagram and damn Penelope feeds on me, and it's like 50 stories of people like tagging, posting their bottles of what they got. Their store pics of Architect, you name it, Valencia, whatever, everywhere. People are just really latching onto it, and for a lot of good reasons. They've done a great job. It's it's not a crazy price point. It's relatively affordable. It's good liquid. Like you said, Ed, the package appeals to a lot of folks. I did see whatever the estate, and I was like, wow, it looks just like BTEC. It looks like a spitting image of BTEC. But yeah, I mean, but for them to double, I've always heard this from people in the industry, to really scale a brand, you have to really nail the on-premise, and still at those price points. I mean, they have the white label. The on-premise is still like kind of where you have to that's where your brand really explodes. So, if they can get something that's in that sub $30 range, and they probably can now with, MGP being the main, the main person in this now, they can get their cost of goods down. So, yeah, I think I like that prediction.
Kenny, I actually had that as one of my 6 as well. 100% agree with that. From the beginning, Mike, Mike has always been the guy. He just called liquor stores. He just called retailers. He just called people. They tag, he had people that tag them. They share, people that reach out to them. He talks, has always gotten back to them. Just a very connected brand with people. And I think it's gonna be interesting to see now, like having MGP, the full kind of breadth of what's there. I don't think we've ever been able to really see that because everything has been somebody who's sourced from MGP, try to do something with it, maybe not much, maybe blend it a little bit, whatever. I think we're really going to see the boundaries of MGP kind of get pushed and see some cool stuff coming out within the branding that also has a different kind of feel to it. I mean, Penelope named after Mike's daughter, so it has somewhat of a kind of more female oriented branding to it, which is different than most of the things you see on the shelf. They tend to be, kind of the traditional, darker colors, the blacks, the browns, things like that. So I think it attracts with some of these brighter colors, like Rio really catches the eye with that color. I have, in fact, the latest Breaking the Seal. I'm drinking that right now, surprisingly, or ironically, I should say. It catches the eye with that tall bottle, just like BTAC does, as somebody mentioned before. It looks kind of like BTAC. I think they're poised. I agree 100%. I think they're poised to just explode this year. I'm excited to see what they do too.
Yeah, MGP. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody put a comment about the investment, but I think that's one where we'll look back and think like, wow, MGP got a steal just at the growth. And, I love Mike and Danny, so I hate to talk so nice about them publicly when everybody else has. So, but I think they're just doing the right stuff. They're connecting with people. It's different enough. It's hitting a price point people like, and we see it a lot on Sealbox where brands come on, and sometimes we don't understand where the enthusiasm comes from. And with Penelope, it's like, yeah, we get it. So obviously very exciting for them, and I hate that we're kind of going around the round table and just talking about how right Kenny is about this prediction. But I think I want to be
guaranteed to fail
naysayer somewhere. But no, I think that's a good one. Yeah. Are we supposed to have 6 predictions each?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a 3-hour roundtable.
Yeah. I was like, oh, geez, very unprepared. No. I mean,
Blake, go ahead and hit us with your prediction. Give us one. We'll spin on that.
Brian's commentary.
Oh yeah, Brian, do you have anything to say?
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with any of that. But I'll admit now on live air, I haven't really found my Penelope. I'm not the hugest fan. I probably agree with what you've said about it, how it's poised to take off. But let's just say I'm not the most excited about it, and maybe I need to learn. Maybe I need to drink more with you guys to find out why.
And this is, I think Ryan and I, we've always discussed this at length. We sit back and we look at brands. We kind of figure out what's working, what's not working, where they hitting and stuff like that. And Penelope just hit the right time in the right place. They're not hitting the OG bourbon people. Mm-hmm. They're not, right? That's not what they really care about. Of course, they're going to drop maybe a 9 to 15-year-old MGP. And some people are like, oh, cool. The very old Scout is back again. But that's not going to be their mainstay. Their mainstays of your Valencia, your Toasted, your whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're hitting today's modern bourbon consumer that's, for lack of a better term, chasing a trend. And they're just trying to find like what's next, what's this different flavor. Not really looking at like what was really good bourbon from what we were used to when we kind of really got into this in 2012 to 2015 timeframe, where we were kind of spoiled.
That is a very kind and absolutely 100% correct way of saying I'm old. I mean that sort of checks out. I mean, that's you described what I'm looking for, and I think what they offer.
Yeah, I think the last comment, I think they've been brilliant in understanding there has been so many new bourbon drinkers, and they've been brilliant at figuring out how do we appeal to them, and their product lines have really, with all the finishing, the Toasted, the Rio, which is, people that have been drinking whiskey for a long time that necessarily won't appeal to them. But new people who are like, oh, I like this finish because it's not tasting like aged bourbon, that I've had from my grandpa or whatever. It's just this new kind of you know different thing that excites like new younger drinkers for sure.
All right, somebody go take another prediction.
Well, building
Yeah,
off. Oh, we'll let Blake
I was
go.
gonna,
Yeah.
okay. I was gonna say I can jump in. So I think two things that will stick out to me here is one. I think it's the year of like the niche bourbon. We've seen it a bunch on Sealbox where um, it's bourbon's become so pervasive in all these different industries. You start to see whatever niche is like, oh, we can have a product that is bourbon based and relates to our audience because obviously they're going to be into it. I think we'll see a lot more of that. So it's not like necessarily just a celebrity bourbon at that point. It's just, whether it's baseball or golf or, whatever it is, I think we'll see a lot more of that coming on. And then I also think, and I think it was David Taub said this on Twitter, or no, it was Matt Cusick. So I won't. I'll give him his credit, but he was talking about how I think craft has really come a long way, and whereas I feel like I've been preaching that for a while, I think the amount of craft whiskey we have that's 6+ years, and at the same time, it's kind of been beneficial that the big guys are they're now charging $300, $400, $500 a bottle, makes craft so much more accessible to people and interesting for that. So I think we finally hit that switch, and craft and major distilleries are starting to change roles in that a lot of those sales channels.
So I'll hit you with one. By the way, was that two predictions in one right there? Talking about more celebrity brands and then better craft. Is that?
It was an A and a B. It's an A and a B. It's
okay. Now, just because we see better craft coming on the market, do you think this is going to be something that the larger companies have to start responding to in different ways? Is it going to be through new products? Is it going to be through acquisitions? Like, how do you think the people that are your Diageos, your Heaven Hills, your Pernots, like, how are they going to respond if all of a sudden, I think Ben Holiday, great example. It's taking off. People are talking about it. They make a great product. Now, how does somebody else kind of look at that and say, like, okay, like, do we need to model something? Do we need to acquire them? Do we need to shut them down? Like what does a big person try to do in that scenario?
Yeah, to me, it's following the path a little bit of the craft brewing, where it becomes an acquisition game where everybody of any notoriety is getting acquired. But it's a little tougher because there's not as many players out there for acquisition. But I think that will be how it plays out. But in general, the big guys are still always 2 to 3 years behind what the enthusiasts want, and we see that with them now coming out with Toasted and all this other stuff. So I think it's a mix, but mainly I think we'll just see a lot more acquisitions in 2024. So there's prediction number 3.
All right. Well, before we get into acquisitions, anybody else want to respond to one of two of Blake's predictions there?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Blake. I mean, one of my predictions was going to be, you said Penelope is poised for growth. I think a brand like Still Austin is really poised for growth. I've been so impressed with everything they've put out. It appeals to a seasoned drinker. It appeals to a new drinker. I think they have cool packaging. So I'm on this bandwagon that, you have Ben Holiday was a great example. I think there's just these great little distilleries popping up that are taking, not just traditional craft methods. They're using pot still distillation and local grains, whatever. They're taking Kentucky methods of column still distillation. They're taking Kentucky methods, but making it their own, and they're putting out really good stuff. So I see brands kind of like that just really growing as, I just agree with Blake. That's all I'll say.
As we all should.
And I'm with Blake on the niche side of it. I agree with that. I think things are going to take over what used to be single barrels that you used to do for a larger subgroup. You're going to have folks finding a way to have a brand just for them, a little sub brand, and it's going to be whatever the the sporting event is, it's going to have its own brand. Teams will have their own brand. I kind of agree that it's going to go that direction. So you have this micro niche bourbon brands.
So you really think micro niche? So you're thinking like every NFL team is going to have some sort of branded bourbon that people could buy?
Well, I think the Titans will have some Tennessee whiskey that is kind of sub branded. So not all of them, but the ones who have some connection by their state or by whatever community they're in, if it's a big spirits community, are going to be doing that just to show that your team pride and all that. And companies will do it for events and all those sorts of things. So I agree with Blake on that one.
Well, to the point where like it doesn't even have an outside connotation to say like, oh, a local distiller, like this is our, yeah, I don't know, this is coming from Chattanooga whiskey, if we're gonna say it's the Titans or whatever.
Right.
Like it doesn't even have that. Like it is just strictly branded Tennessee sourced whatever, and it is just all Titans.
I think it'll have to come from the big guys, unfortunately, because of the excess that they have, which is going to lead to one of my predictions. But I think that's where it's going to come from. I think they're not going to be smart enough to find the Chattanoogas and the smaller crafts or the smaller producers. They're going to have to go with excess from the big guys.
Yeah, and with that, because you'll have to look at cost too. They can't buy from craft producers,
right?
And when you're trying to appeal to an NFL fan who has, their tops, they'll spend, maybe $40-$50 on a bottle, that's branded them, but I don't see much more than that. You see that with Makers and Kentucky bottles. They're priced at $35-$40,
Yep.
maybe more, but anyways, yeah, you saw Baltimore Ravens. Sagamore did a Baltimore Ravens release recently, which had Sagamore's own distillate, but they are, based there in Maryland. They have a pretty big facility and can get those costs down. So,
which I mean,
like
is
a larger,
that kind of what the Traveler was with the new Chris Stapleton and Buffalo Trace. It's like it's a blended whiskey, right? I mean, I haven't dug too deep into it, but that doesn't is that going to be a Crown Royal competitor, or is that going to be something that people on this podcast would want to drink? I mean, I don't know. I think that's where they're going with some of those collaborations, just to get rid of the excess at times, maybe, but I could be wrong.
I mean,
I think the Traveler is supposed to be widely accessible, is the position behind that. And I'm thinking of, and kind of piggybacks, it kind of blends with one of my predictions too, thinking about the Ryder Cup Elijah Craig release. That was $100. Made sense. I think it made perfect sense for that as a kind of commemorative release, and coming off from a big brand like that could, they could still manage the margin and do the special packaging and have something that was, going to be fairly appealing to a wide audience. I do think they struggle a little bit when you think about the big beer concept. You can take, a big guy can buy a little guy and just increase production dramatically. I think they kind of run into that hurdle if they don't have the production at their facility. They have to figure out and manage that, and they can't just necessarily turn it around in such a short amount of time either. So I think that presents the challenge where, as a little guy, you have to get big enough to be able to be appealing to someone else that is going to both acquire you and make margins on a go forward basis. I mean, a perfect example, as we were just talking about, is MGP with Penelope. I mean, I don't think you can think of a better opportunity for acquisition with growth like that. And so when you start thinking about the Still Austins and, some of these others, you have a great connection with a great brand, but a big guy's also going to be looking for, are we going to be able to get the production? Is that scalable to the extent that we're going to be able to be profitable from it? I think that's where you run into the hurdles that you just won't see the uptake like you see with craft beer. Sure, it'll be there, but I think quite a bit slower by comparison. And I think a lot of them will be a very hands-off kind of acquisition as well, especially if they really like what they're doing, unless they see a whole new direction for the company.
Very cool. All right, who's got
So
another one?
I got one. I'll throw
Go.
one in. So very specific. I think we're gonna see, seems natural that we're gonna see an Elijah Craig barrel proof rye come out. Just like we've seen everything come through. We got the Elijah Craig barrel proof, we got Larceny barrel proof, we got the Bernheim barrel proof. I think we're gonna see the rye. It makes sense. That would be next. I think it's probably gonna be 2 releases a year, similar to Bernheim. But that would seem to fit their portfolio perfectly.
I'm
I
rooting
feel
for
like
that.
you just rolled out their press release for them. It'll be 2 times a year. It is to complete the trifecta of barrel proof releases.
Yeah.
I will say this
Yeah.
is based on zero inside information. It is purely a prediction. So
Is it a wish list prediction or
yeah, it's that too. It's
Yeah.
when you
Man,
think predictions, I do
yeah.
think wish list as well. I usually start there. I usually think in the positive direction.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's that one dude Ryan put in here. Is like, yeah, Pikesville rye barrel proof would be nice. He also said
Same
Rittenhouse
thing.
barrel proof, and that's what I'm saying. I was like, it's all the same stuff in a different bottle, just at different proof points. And I guess when you think about branding, of course, Elijah Craig is going to be that particular brand in their portfolio. They would probably align it with more than anything else.
Yeah, and Elijah Craig just has I think it's probably their fastest growing SKU, and it just has this appeal to and it's a more profitable product, I think, for them, because they're able to charge more. Obviously it's a little higher age than most of the other products, but definitely has more appeal to whiskey fans and common drinkers alike.
Very good. I like that, Nick. I think
That
you're
was a
right
good
on
one,
point.
Nick. I didn't even think of that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. I hope they do it.
Yeah. All right, Brian, your turn. Hit us with one.
All right. Well, Nick tried to go positive. I kind of I went a little negative, so I'll give you all the warning.
We gotta
on
have
that.
somebody that's the
Yeah.
half glass empty kind of person.
So yeah, and I'm not usually that way, but for this prediction I am, and it kind of relates to my earlier comment about the big guys having all the excess. They got a slight reprieve from January 1 and the taxes, the tariffs going up, but that's only temporary. They've all been producing nonstop here for now 6 years. They've all got warehouses everywhere, and they're all full. I think we are going to see in 2024 the first layoffs from Big Bourbon. I think this benefits craft because they don't have that same exposure, but they've overproduced. They don't have the outlet for it. And I'll even call Beam is going to be the first to have to lay off.
Oh, wow. That's
And now by layoff,
bold.
you mean people? You mean
People. They're going to reduce the workforce because they've produced too much. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's an outlet for it. But right now, there's not an outlet for what is in the warehouses. There's just not. The math doesn't work.
Well, I don't know about
I've
that.
heard people pausing their bottling lines towards the end of the year, but that's more from everybody cranking way up, and maybe we just
Right.
took a pause. But I actually tend to agree with Brian, and it sounds like Kenny doesn't. So I want to hear what he has to say, and then I'll make my statement.
Yeah. So when I look at this is not a very, I guess, manpower heavy type of industry where you've got to have tons and tons of people on the production. I mean, are you thinking production or are you thinking overall like sales? Like where do you see the rifts happening?
Yeah, so you've got a great point. I mean, it doesn't take a big team to run a still. I mean, it sort of almost just happens at some of these places, and then it gets into the warehouses pretty easily. But so I think it's going to have to be across the board because it's not on the production side where you're really intensive on that, but it's going to hit them. They've just got too much and no outlet, so they're going to have to back off somewhere.
Well,
Are their attorneys' jobs safe?
Now, actually, those are the first to go because they are.
That.
Yeah, they're not a profit center, so in-house goes first.
So, like I said, the only thing that's why I asked, because when you think about production side, production doesn't need a whole lot of manpower to sit there and operate a still, do operations, move a few barrels around, put them in trucks, dump some barrels. Bottling line, a lot of that stuff is all union based anyway. So I don't really see, like, you would just have to fight the union at that point. Um, Now, when you think about when you come to sales, that's a real possibility. I mean, 2023 was a very down year for a lot of brands, especially a lot of big brands, and it wasn't hard to read that from, if you listen to This Week in Bourbon, you read Mark Brown's newsletter, you saw that most brands were down 7 to 18% this past year, especially in the brown goods category. And that's not good by any means, but it's also what we've been saying is more along the lines of a market correction, just because we had a few years of just asinine buying. But the other side of this is that we look at what it was in the 70s or prior to then, we're still not to where, I think, not even the 70s, I'm sorry about that. Prior to the highest of what whiskey consumption was in the US, we're still not there yet. So there's still poised for growth. Now, if I'm a Jim Beam, or if I'm a, I don't know, whomever, well, the easiest thing you can do is just make more product lines. You make more product lines, you get it back on our store shelves, you find some damn rye whiskey and you call it, guess what? We got Booker's Rye all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden, all your rye whiskey sold, right? You look at, try to find the stuff that you hung your hat on a long time ago and try to ride that wave again. And I don't think it'd be hard to do that. But again, that's probably not moving the volume they probably need. Like Booker's Rye would be an awesome release, but that's not volume.
Right.
And unless they start opening up the new markets and we're starting to see the decline in what people are purchasing, it is going to have a little bit of a shaky go at it here soon.
Well, I figured that I got all my predictions wrong when I was wishing for predictions. So if I'm wrong on my predictions, I won't be wrong on this one.
But I think there's something to be said there that maybe they've overproduced. I mean, if the curve is going up and up and up, and you keep rising to meet that, and it corrects, this stuff is hard to just move quickly. And I would tend to agree with you, Brian. I don't know exactly what it translates to in terms of actual jobs, but in terms of general production and the direction makes sense. The question is going to be, how do brands correct? I mean, Kenny, you pointed out, more lines going to run out of liquor store shelf space. So, I mean, that bodes well for online retail. At the same time, you can there's only so much mind share as well. So there's 20 brands new, 50 brands new, 100, only so many of those are going to get people looking for them. So it's always a fight for the mind share. Brands that are smart, especially the big ones, I got to believe they're looking at international markets and saying, where is the growth over there? How do we plan for that and tap into it? Because if you think about where the real growth probably is, there's probably a ton of opportunity there. It's just a lot more tricky, and it's not necessarily a space that they're comfortable playing in. It's a whole different, avenue. And that's, we see it already happen. We see them playing in that space, but I don't know that anyone really truly has those markets completely figured out. We might see more growth in those areas as a result, if we are talking about such a massive glut of bourbon.
Yeah, and as Kenny alluded to, a lot of these are in unions, so it's going to be impossible to do layoffs. Beam is one of those exceptions where they would be exposed to those. But I think Beam has such a strong foothold internationally that they can probably start pivoting resources to Asia, Indian markets over there. Europe's still a TBD with the tariffs. They only got a year extension on that. So I know a lot of people's butt cheeks are tight waiting for that to get permanently resolved. So it's TBD. And this might move in, and Nick kind of brought that up. It was a great point, like of online sales. And I guess if we can't, we can move into another prediction. But I think you're going to see a really hard push for DTC laws to change in this year, because I think you've seen through COVID, a lot of distribution has merged. A lot of distributors have bought out other distributors. There's way less distributors than there are brands these days. And I think companies are realizing that and distributors have been smart, and they're relying on the brands to do all the market work, to do all the sales and do all the market work, and they're just becoming a logistics company. And I think brands are getting tired of that, and they're going to start really investing in the online direct to consumer and doubling down on own premise. I read that term from someone called own premise. You have the on premise, which is obviously bars and restaurants. You have off premises, which is retails. But I think companies have seen the value of having your own premise, where people are wanting experiences coming to your place, building the brand that way, saving up money to come have an experience, buy bottles there. So I think you see people doubling down on that. And I really think the DTC is going to get a big push going into this year.
And this prediction is brought to you by sealbox.com. We'd like to thank everybody. No, I mean, and I'll jump into a little bit of that, but I would agree. I think we're still not nearly as far in a lot of the DTC stuff as we thought we'd be coming out of COVID. But at the end of the day, it's like, I've never heard the own premise, but it makes sense. Like, you have to control your brand, you have to control the narrative, not in a bad way, but like, you want to interact with people. Like, if you're on Twitter and Instagram and you get a comment, like, you want to engage them. And then based on the old model, it's like, oh, hey, you're in Kansas, maybe Google these 25 stores and then drive around and see if you can buy a bottle. Like, that's just not how most of it works. So I do agree with Ryan there, where a lot of these brands, they've started making a big social media push and talking to the people who are buying their bottles or interested in their bottles, and they want a direct way to say, here's how we can get you a bottle, and we can follow up, and we can see if you liked it, didn't like it, and did you share it with friends. And so I would agree. I just think that's just going to be way more important over the next 5 to 10 years, just because it's a crowded market. So if you can captivate an audience, you need to be able to sell them something, which is, in the alcohol world, kind of weird and difficult at times. So
yeah, this people in the chat's been asking, what's the new law that's going to come through? What's happening with TTB and categories of whiskey, but this is the one. This I agree with Ryan. This is the year that's really going to get a lot of attention in a lot of different states. KDA, I know, is pushing it, and they're going to continue. And it just makes sense. Plus, it chips away at the 3-tier, which there's some reason to have it, but I'm totally happy for this. So I like this one, Ryan.
The only thing I'll say pushback on it is that you're going to have the brands, the organizations, they just don't have the lobbying power and the money that they can put people in Washington to sit there and advocate for it. Whereas Republican Southern, I don't even know what their books look like, but I can guarantee it's bigger than most distillers out there.
I don't believe that's true. Beam's got some, I won't name names, but they got some pretty big lobbyists that they've hired to go and push this. So I think you're going to see brands invest even more in trying to push this. I think there's still a place for the 3-tier system, but I think there's going to be a bigger push to move this ball forward. I don't know. That's just a insider prediction I got.
All right.
It's pretty much universally wanted by brands too, I would think. I can't imagine any brand wouldn't be for it and wouldn't participate in moving that ball forward.
I can think of one. But
All right. Well, let's start round 2. I'll go with the next one. This one might be a little shocking. So in 2023, we saw a few people leave to go and do their own thing. And even back in 2022, you saw Jackie Zykin leave to go and do Hidden Barn. You saw Jane and Denny leave to start Potter Jane Distilling. Now, recently, you've seen Caleb Kilborn and Cordell Lawrence leave Peerless to go and do their own thing. So I'm going to guess in 2024, the only person that's going to have the clout that they can leave and go do their own thing is Harlan Wheatley.
Oh, wow.
Heard it here first.
My guess, and this is completely just no insider information, but I would have to say they have some sort of agreement to put his name on Wheatley vodka, that he has a non-compete that is about as tight as possible. But that would be pretty interesting to watch.
Like I said,
Yeah,
it
you
would
saw with Jeff
be.
Barnett.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it and I was just like, what other master distillers are left sitting at distilleries? I mean, of course the Russells, but Jimmy's not going. Jimmy's done. Eddie said he doesn't want to work anymore. So
What if the Van Winkles came out with something outside of Buffalo Trace?
But that's my along the lines of thinking is a somebody else going to go start another distillery. But I don't know if the Van Winkles really don't own the brand as much as Buffalo Trace owns the brand. So
Yeah,
I
and how
don't
would
see
that
that
look out
changing.
legally? If your name is Van Winkle, can you use Van Winkle?
What if
Brian?
Harlan started something in Harlan County? Could he do a distillery there and still not
See?
get
I
sued
like it. I
for
like
the
it.
name?
This would be the Harlan Van Winkle set. I guess the question, I don't know enough about where his leeway is, but the question is how much room does he have there on a day-to-day basis versus how much is being controlled. I mean, I think there's an emotional side of it too. When you look at why people go off, I mean, I think there's kind of it's either to accomplish something or they're just not getting something out of the relationship that they're in a case like that is really the thing that has to drive it. And I don't know enough about what that day-to-day looks like for him to be able to fall on one side of that prediction or the other.
Oh, I get it. And then that's probably back to my guess on just distillers that are leaving. I mean, most of it's because there was this gold rush that people were going for it, and you can build a name, you can build a brand just off the clout and the reputation that you've built. I don't know anybody else than distilling right now that has a bigger reputation than him that couldn't go off and potentially start his own thing.
Intriguing, juicy. I like it.
Yeah, but to be fair, probably 90% of the consumers have no idea who he is.
Oh, are you kidding me? It comes out, all he has to do is hire Amy Presky, and you've got the best PR person there to say this is coming from the old master distiller Buffalo Trace. Like it's lightning in a bottle.
That's true. Fair enough. People just, we saw it with this Traveler shit. Everybody's just flocking over it because it's made by Buffalo Trace.
Exactly.
Even though it's a Crown Royal competition.
All right, so that's a little bit off the wall, but go ahead, next person before we start running out of time.
I'll throw an easy one or a quick one. I think we're going to see more movement to the 700 ml bottles off of 750s, not just Jack and Brown Forman. I think we're going to start seeing, I got to catch up with the glass that's already been ordered and people can wait forever to get it. But it would seem to make sense that brands would start going that direction, especially the bigger ones.
Yep, I can concur.
I like that.
I think
Yep.
we talked about this maybe last year
feel
too.
like we
but
had this on last one. I think
I
was it
think
Brian
I
who
upped
said-
it.
Yeah,
I upped it to 1L
Brian.
though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't go
Oh,
down. I
okay.
went up. Yeah.
Oh, you're thinking, I think we're going to see both too. I mean,
Yeah.
you do see Jack does a lot of 700s and 1Ls.
Yeah.
Seems to be their combo, but I mean, it makes sense globally too.
it's
If you're
still
thinking
coming,
about
yeah.
global markets, why
Absolutely.
wouldn't you do that? Why have a special bottle size just for here? I think we're just going to see more of it as it catches up. And the thing, we started doing on our reviews too. We started saying, price per 700 ml or 750 ml, because you really can't tell the difference on the shelf. I've had a number of people very confused or talk to me. They're very confused about the pricing, for example, with like Jack Bonded. They're seeing the 1 liter, they're seeing the price. It doesn't align with our review. They're not realizing that it's the 1 liter. And then same thing, they're not realizing the smaller one is the 700. So it tends to be by region. Stores, I know stores around here, they all get 1Ls for some reason. No one has 700s locally for whatever reason. And people don't even realize, because it's just on the shelf there. They just see it for $49.99 and they think, oh, that's more expensive. They don't realize it's got 250 more ml in it. So it's actually not necessarily helping in that case, but then you flip the other way and you're saving a little bit, at least on the brand side.
kind of goes back to the McDonald's thing and the quarter pounder story. If you ever know that one,
Right.
y'all can Google that one. All right, who's got another one?
All right. Well,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, one. Go ahead, guys.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I think Brian, you predicted prices will go up. I think prices will go down in 2024. I think because brands had such a tough year, they have extra inventory. They're going to do whatever they can to sell it. And also cost of goods have kind of stabilized and dropped down. And so I think you're going to see prices you might not see it in what probably most of this audience cares about in limited editions. They'll probably stay stagnant, but I don't see them increasing. I do see some prices falling, especially like something like Booker's or, just like a Elijah Craig Barrel Proof or something like that. I see prices coming down because I think economic concerns, election year, economy's weird. I see prices coming down.
But do you think they can actually drop prices at this point? I would agree to the fact of like prices as a whole, where we're going to see more brands popping up. Where if Heaven Hill did a remake of, the 6-year bottled and bond and brought that back, you'd see people go crazy for it. But
They already did. It's called the 7-year bottled and bond. That's
well,
now
I know, but
$45.
exactly at $45. But if they brought it back at whatever $17.99 or something, people would storm the shelves. But I just think it's super hard for a brand to have a price increase and then be like, hey, we kind of lied about why we increased the prices. We just thought we could charge that. Now we're going to charge less. I think that's going to be a hard sales point for some of them without doing it under a new brand.
I think you're thinking like crazy price differences. I think, Ryan, what are you talking, like $2-3?
Yeah, I was thinking somewhere between 5 to 10, somewhere around there. And I'm talking mostly mid-tier brands, anything sub $100.
All right.
So I think it might be more likely to see the insertion of the lower end brand in the line. Thinking about what's the new Tesla that's going to be coming out, like around 25,000, going to be highly accessible. I think you're going to see more of that, where we've kind of seen like the death of the sub $20-$25 bottle. We might see that kind of return a little bit, and that's where it kind of goes, and it doesn't necessarily cannibalize what's there already, but might be the thing to bring people in. But I agree with you, Ryan. I think people are getting more price sensitive, and I think they're more price sensitive around that 250 plus, 500 especially, and could be more attracted to the affordable bottles.
And I have something maybe in the middle of all this. I mean, with surplus, I keep harping on that. We're going to see 12-year-old whiskey return. I mean, left and right. We're going to have, I think Matt had mentioned, 15-year Knob Creek returns. All that's going to come back, and maybe that's where they, whereas last 2 years they could charge $350 for that. I'm not saying Knob Creek 15, but they could charge so much for a whiskey at that point in time. It's going to be a more moderate price. So, I mean, win for us, I guess.
All right, who's got another one?
Yeah. I won't piggyback. I was kind of to Nick's point about the return of the $25 bottle. I think that'll be a big thing in 24, 25, and most likely from brands we haven't seen before. But for call this the bold prediction, I think there's going to be a lot more tequila and bourbon drinkers shelves this year. A little more off the wall, but whenever you look at tequila, there's still that Weller 12 kind of bottle that was, the 2015 Weller 12 where it was on the shelf for $30. That still is available in the tequila world in a lot of places. So I think it's a great product, and it has a lot of the same attributes as bourbon did, 7-8 years ago. So I think there's going to be a lot of bourbon drinkers starting to dive into that world in 2024. But
you're wrong.
Get out of here.
No, and you read about the agave producers. They panic planted, 3 or 4 years ago to catch up with demand, and now they have an influx of agave. They don't even know what to do with. Tequila is peaked and it's going down, if anything. And so I think
That's not
I think
true.
I think
It's
bourbon
not going
drinkers I
down.
think bourbon drinkers have tried tequila and they say it's not for me. Otherwise, it would continue to grow. And I mean, tequila
Well,
is good in a margarita. I just don't think it appeals to a bourbon drinker's palate. Some
Well,
it does, but not all, I think.
someone made me a rye in a margarita. I don't know who, but
I
that
see the
works
rye
too.
read
See,
growing by
I mean
2,000%.
you. Yeah.
he's giving you your first hit over there. He's a part of the problem with driving bourbon drinkers to tequila. So I'm just that's my bold prediction for 2024.
All right. Don't like
So-
it, but sure.
So nobody has said there's going to be a new Weller that nobody wants.
I
Well,
was
none of us.
thinking that, but I didn't want to say that. I was like, there's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
a
didn't want
new
to be that
Weller,
guy
but
either.
there's gonna be
That's
a new
wrong,
Weller
Brian.
because
There's
Yeah.
going to be 3.
Aha, yeah, great. Yeah, good point.
We only do wrong predictions here. We don't do right
that's right.
predictions.
There you go. All right. Who's got another one?
I think
Bring up-
MGP is going to acquire another brand because I think they've saw the success with Penelope. I think they'll try to acquire another one and build I think it's just been such a success for them. They're going to really push to find another up and coming brand. One I look at that they might be interested is OKI. The brand has ties to MGP because I think they had whatever the Remus brand that they sold MGP, then they started OKI, and I think it just has appeal. Being Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. I don't know. I think there's maybe something there for MGP to look at.
Do you have a prediction of who you think would be
I think
Good
OKI
candidate.
would be it.
That'd be a good one. I mean, of course, National Barrel Company is an easy one that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's another good one too.
Well, I think Smoke Wagon's always out
Yeah.
there as a.
Yeah.
Do we want to do that? Everybody give one prediction for who could get acquired in 2024. I feel like that's always a fun one.
Old Elk would be a good one too. for
Old Elk is
MGP.
a great one.
Yeah.
Blake, who do you think's gonna get acquired?
Blue Run. No, I'm just kidding.
Again.
If I had to guess, and this was probably my 2023 prediction. I still just think Barrel is out there doing a lot of great stuff with a bunch of different variety. Now they have the foundations, which is, kind of in that mid-market pricing, and it's really good. I just think they're still primed for something like that, if I had to guess. But yeah, that's my guess.
I'm going to guess Peerless. For so long, they said they're never ever selling. They built their company to never sell, and they've clearly been on the market now for like 2 years. They want to sell, so they're going to sell.
They just lost their master distiller too, so
Yeah, exactly.
there's going to be a need for it. All right, well, I'll go. The brand was already mentioned. Still Austin. I think they're poised to get bought out by somebody.
Yeah.
Pursuit is my next.
We keep saying it, like, please, somebody put us out of our misery.
Yes, we'll take it. Please put us out of our misery.
MGP for $500 million.
We'll take
about
it. Even though we built a brand not on MGP.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
We screwed ourselves there.
What about you, Nick? Who do you think's going to get acquired this year?
Oh man, I thought about this a little bit. I veered away from trying to make this prediction, but I mean, I guess I'll just make commentary on as far as a complementary brand. I do think Smoke Wagon's branding complements Penelope's branding in that it's very opposite in that sense. If you were to think about, if MGP was to say, we're really reaching different ends of the spectrum with what we're doing, I think, one kind of doesn't impose on the other necessarily at all, but they actually complement each other very nicely. So I think it'd be an acquisition that would make sense, to be honest with you. And then I think that would actually make the Smoke Wagon products, take a big step forward as well, just like we're going to see, I think, with Penelope.
Ryan, did you have one?
Oh gosh,
So
you
you're
all
looking at
said-
your wall
I
of
know.
bottles over there.
Well, because everybody said everything already. I mean, I would. Gosh, it's so tough.
I mean, put it this way, it's never one that you expect. Like, whoever saw, Sagamore, whoever predicted that one last year? Nobody.
That's true.
Pursuit
I'm just
buys Buffalo
looking.
Trace.
Yeah. I think what's going to have to happen is we have to just do a barrel pick there, and I got to fall down the stairs and get a good lawsuit.
Brian's there to witness.
Call me. I'm there.
That's our only chance. Yeah, I mean, Barrel's a good one, but I just don't know that Trip and Joe want to sell. But I agree. The foundation was fantastic, and it was needed for quite some time. I think from their lineup, it was that price point that they were missing. I mean, Old Elk to me would be probably the most logical answer. But I don't know. They're owned by the Otterbox people, so they might have the funding and might not need it. So. Gosh, I mean, I just look and I don't know of any brands that are right for a company that would want to buy. It just wouldn't make sense for them. Maybe like a Pinhook or something because they are, a lot of MGP. I could see somebody. I could see Castle and Key maybe getting bought out by someone, just because they have the capacity, they have contract distillation, they have good branding. If someone needs production, but according to Brian, no one needs more production because we're glutted. So it, and people are saying Ben Holiday. I don't know. I think they still got to be a TBD. They're winning in the niche market, but I don't necessarily see them winning, a broad mass consumers quite yet. So I think they still got to prove themselves in the market as a whole. I like your Still Austin. That to me is the most exciting brand for me coming up. I just absolutely love everything they're doing. I think they're great. They got great branding, great price points, fantastic whiskey. I think that's a really good brand to look at.
Curious if you think it would be a buy from an existing whiskey company or completely outside a company that wants to get into it.
Yeah, I
and
would.
add that.
I would think it would be, yeah, definitely. I don't see acquisitions happening except from MGP this year. I think, there's a lot of things for brands to figure out, and I don't think adding another brand to portfolios is in the interest. So it'd probably be private equity or, a big capital, hedge fund type person that just wants to get in the game, and the owners of Still Austin just want a big return on it. I don't know.
I feel like those are the ones that are hard to predict too. Somebody you
Yep.
never heard of, buying someone, you're like, what's going on? And then it makes sense once you look at it in the rear view.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I know it wasn't any of our predictions, but I have heard it from multiple people that are predicting that you'll see Bardstown and Green River now get sold off from Pritzker because they're going to look for return on their investment. Who knows? But I've heard a lot of people kind of throw that as their prediction.
I don't
for
see
24.
that. I don't see that. Pritzker's in great financial shape. They're in manufacturing mostly. Manufacturing has low margins. They really love the margins of distilling, the contract distillation side. They love the cash flow of it. I think Pritzker, if anything, might double down, and they would be acquiring other contract facilities. That's where I could see that happening.
All right,
Ben Holiday.
last one. Anything?
That's right.
Do you all see any brands getting spun off by larger companies? There was just somebody in the chat that said, "What about Rabbit Hole?" And I was like, "Well, Rabbit Hole is owned by Pernod, so they would have to spin it off." I mean, is there any potential spin-offs where you're going to see brands change hands?
Well, I mean, didn't that's what like the Mary Dowling was with the spin out of Rabbit Hole, or is that
No,
Is that
it's
Cave
it's
owns
Cave's
it.
other brand, but he's got funding from Pernod to
Yeah,
actually go
that's
and
what I was
build it.
thinking.
So it's still a Pernod-ish based company.
Yeah.
So you're saying completely, hey, Pritzker sells off Green River type of thing?
As in, yeah, they sell off to another firm or private
I
equity.
don't see as much of that anytime soon. I feel like, while people are still seeing stuff slow and grow slow, everybody's seems pretty happy with where the spirits world's going. But I don't know. I mean, I guess we could. It seems like the big guys change hands with the early times, and
Right.
who's the other on some of that with fairly good consistency. But
Yeah, I
Since
mean,
we're
you
just
saw Brown Forman spun off. What was their big vodka brand this past year?
not
Um,
Svedka,
Finlandia.
Finlandia, right?
Finlandia. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean,
Um,
you see this stuff happen all
yeah,
the time.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, let's old granddad just gets spun back to Castle and Key to be made at the original National Distillers distillery. I think just a wild prediction out there.
I like that one.
All right, I just had a revelation. I think one brand that's prime for acquisition is Uncle Nearest. I think
Oh,
they've
yeah.
got massive
Yeah.
distribution. They've got
They've got Story.
they got wide
Yeah.
appeal.
They've done nothing but build themselves up for
Yeah.
something like this.
To
Yes.
sell.
Ability to scale. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
I think that's a great prediction, Ryan. It's occurring to me too that if we are seeing kind of slow down, we are seeing the growth taper and pull back. There's gonna be brands that are over leveraged, over committed. We could see blood in the water where you have some kind of surprising exits just out of necessity as well. Not necessarily the planned or the smart move, but kind of just the opportunistic type of situation where people get in over their heads, and they're just not seeing the growth and market that they predicted, and they kind of get stuck having to get bought out because of it. So that could come along with this change too, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, and that was one of my predictions too that I didn't want to talk about, but I'm going to since you said it. But I do see a lot of brands closing up shop this year. I think there's a lot of people that got in the market 3-4 years ago, thought it was going to be an easy game, had a really tough year. Distributors aren't bringing on new brands; they're not giving new brand support, and I think there's going to be a lot of doors closing, unfortunately, starting this year, but especially probably moving into 25.
When you think
Yeah.
brands, you think more on the lines of distilleries that have
Yes,
been doing their own thing,
distilleries,
probably
a lot
outside
of
of.
source brands are going to be. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people just thought they could source and throw a label on it, put it out there, and it's a harder game than that. And I think there's going to be a lot that you're not gonna that you saw on shelves that you're not going to see anything new come from out them, and you're not going to hear about them anymore.
Hey, great.
Okay.
Just noticing in the chat here, Sean Garrity talking about Uncle Nearest, maybe purchased by Jack Daniels or Brown Forman. That'd be interesting to see that.
Take the legacy back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, who could tell it? But they look. Jack has incredible. They have incredible reach with that brand.
It's
Very
kind of surprising
complimentary.
that hasn't happened already, to be honest. I mean, that
Well, I
just
mean,
seemed
here's
like
the
such
thing:
a
is like,
natural.
I think Uncle Nearest raised a shit ton of capital. They went really wide, really fast. I mean, I don't know how much money they're spending, but they are spending a shit ton of money,
Yeah.
and they're definitely building it to sell. So if you're the likes of Brown Forman, you see that, and you're gonna wait till it's like the right time. Like, is this thing actually going to take off? Is it going to falter? Is it going to fail? Or is it really, you got to get it before they really take off. And that's, you just got to get it like right at the peak before it goes up on the rocket ship is where you got to acquire them.
And they're sort of good at they're sort of good at that. Yeah. Brown
Yeah.
Forman's good at that.
Yeah, and this industry is very deceiving. You think of brands killing it because you see them everywhere, but it's really that just they spend a shit ton of money to get product out in market, but then it's got to move off the shelves. So that's a TBD.
Yep. All right. Rapid fire. Quick, go. If you have one last thing that you want to predict for the rest of the year.
Old Crow becomes a premium brand. There you go, David Jennings.
Okay. All right.
More celebrity whiskeys.
Well, that's a gimme.
I know.
We know that's going to happen. How about you, Nick? You got another good one for us?
American single malt going to be more defined and going to see that continue to grow.
Yeah, doubt it.
Didn't say you have to like it, Kenny.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm sure there'll be at least 5 people that like it. No, I shouldn't say that. We're going to be recording soon with somebody part of American Single Malt Whiskey Society, so I'm going to try to keep myself open for it. All right, I'll give to one is I think we're going to see a big comeback on decanter shaped bottles. We saw, of course, everybody goes nuts for Old Fitz. You saw Ed Bly come out recently with his Old Stubborn, and I think you're going to see this trend continue with decanter styles in the premium category.
That's a good prediction. I like that.
Looks nice on the shelf.
I think you're going to have another decade, like 1944 from Old Forester or something. I don't know. That's
There you go. And then last one I'll have is that even though I think it's still going to be another down year for mid-tier bourbon, I think it's still going to be another tough year going into 2024. Last year, we kind of saw the death of barrel picks. I think they're going to come back, but not as strong as they were, especially for the mid-tier. You're going to see a lot more variety of people that are wanting. I think people are going to get bored of seeing the same 6 types of barrel picks that you can get at these liquor stores. So you're going to see a little more variety sprinkled in, but it's not going to be the 2020 to 2021 days.
It's interesting. I'm going to say the revival of vintage labels. I think now that the big guys are really embracing that with like the Distillery or Prohibition series that Buffalo Trace did, I think there's going to be a lot more old labels getting brought back this year than years past.
I'll throw my last one in there, piggyback on that. I think that bottle label design, you guys have already said it in different ways. I think brands are going to be really putting a massive effort into that to get that mind share on the shelf and in front of you, especially as they're more putting stuff up on social media, trying to catch it with that real quick look. I know people, I shop for beer. If it catches my eye, I'm looking at it, see isn't any good. We're going to see a lot more attention paid to labels and bottles and that kind of thing.
Yep. Last prediction, and maybe because I want to be true, people will respect blending, and Tennessee bourbon will start to become more popular, and people will become more accepting of it now that there's more producers. That is not just Dickel and Jack Daniels, because I think there's some great producers in Tennessee coming up. Old Dominic and Leaper's Fork being one of them, and one undisclosed one in Columbia, Tennessee.
There we go.
They do nice bourbon.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, fellas, that was a good breakdown of everything that we're going to see as our predictions come for 2024. I wish I was writing these down because come December of this year, I'm going to go back and re-listen to this to figure out what we said and to see what actually came true. But I am excited as much as well as you and everybody else in the chat and everybody else is listening to see what 2024 holds for not only just American whiskey, but most importantly, bourbon. Well, let's go ahead and do our sign off. So Brian, I'll let you go ahead and start it.
All right. This was a fun one. I love being wrong. So find me at Sipping Corn Bourbon Justice. Thanks, guys.
For sure. Nick.
All right. So this was tons of fun. Happy New Year. Looking forward to a great 2024. Going to hit that 100th episode. And so, yeah, looking forward to running back. I think we fired enough predictions to at least get some of them right. So I think we're just attacking it with numbers this year. So we'll just kind of highlight those. So this is a lot of fun, though. So, great chat. A lot of great comments, too. But always fun. Cheers, everybody.
Love it. And Blake.
Yeah, honestly, one of my favorite episodes of the year because I think, we can all get on here and just give our opinions on all kinds of crazy stuff, but we try to, really take a look and say, hey, what's going to happen? And then we go and look back at it and say who was wrong or right. And that's always fun to me. So always enjoy it. So thanks again. Looking forward to the year of the 100th episode here at Bourbon Pursuit.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be it. Like I said, I'm really excited to see what's going to unfold this year. I know we all have big plans and other kind of goals and aspirations that we're hitting as a part of our side, as well as Bourbon Pursuit, as well as Pursuit Spirits. And I hope you do too. Make sure you set yourself your goals high, aim high, and let's see what 2024 has in store for us. So with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Toodles. Cheers.
All right.
Nice one, guys.
Yeah.
That was
That
good.
was good. Nick nailed it. We have 2,800 predictions going.
Something is going to be right.
If we just start at 1%, we should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be like the best baseball players, batting 300.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just keep swinging that bat.
Got to get up to bat.
Yeah, I figured it's a lot easier to just throw a bunch of
That's-
wild shit out there and actually see what
Yeah.
happens versus like just putting like one or two of them out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it makes it
it's
more
fun
fun.
though too.
All
I
right.
have fun with
I
it.
got to run. I'll see y'all.
All right,
Enjoyed it.
see you on the
All right.
slope.
See ya, Blake.
Hey, man. Can he
I'm gonna do
download
the
from-
same.
Oh yeah,
guys.
Blake. Yeah, you're gonna have to probably. Or do y'all just want to sign off? Or do you
I
wanna
gotta
s-
get going. So
All right, let's go ahead and
Yeah.
we'll sign off. Blake's hang around for a second, and then we'll start the upload. But again, thanks everybody that was tuning in. This was fun, and like I said, we'll see you next time.
Toodles.